In this video, we're going to look at taking our 2D concept sketches and developing them on. We're going to take them on a bit further. We're going to start to put them into orthographic sketches representing third angle projection. So our three main views, we're looking for an elevation, a plan, and an end elevation. Okay, so our first step to do is to look at our original 2D concept sketches. So I'm looking at a couple of ideas here. I'm thinking, right, which one do I like the most? Have I got a preference? What one I'm going to choose? Which one do I think is going to be easy for me to draw as we go through? Okay, which one do I like? Which one am I going to want to develop further? Okay, so I really like this one here. So I'm going to take this design and move it forward. So I'm going to make sure I've got my concept sketches beside me on my desk so I can see what I'm doing. I can refer back to it as we go. Okay, the next thing we need to consider is the scale of our container. So I'm just going to bring this back in for a second when we talk through that. So a normal container, one container, is 20 feet by 8 feet. Okay, so that's your standard size you'd see. We are going to work at this at a scale of 1 to 50. So that means the sizes we're going to use, if you times that by 50, that would then give you the actual size of the object. Okay, so for the purposes of our work in drawing, we're going to have the length of the container at 122 millimeters. We're going to have the width of the container at 48 millimeters. And the height of the container at 52 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to write this down at the top right of my page. I encourage you to do the same thing so you can refer back to it as we go. Okay, so these sizes here mean we're drawing the container, we're drawing a 20 foot by 8 foot container at a scale of 1 to 50. Okay, so next thing we do is I'm going to write my name down at the bottom here, Mr. Ross. All right, so that's looking good. So let's get started. We're now going to start to draw in our three views, our elevation, our plan, and our end elevation. So we're going to start off with our elevation to begin with, okay? So I'm going to take a ruler, we need one of these to begin with, to mark out where we're going to draw in. So I'm going to take my T-square down out the way just now, and I'm simply just going to place my ruler onto the page, and I'm going to measure up 10 millimeters from the bottom there. I'm just going to put a tiny little mark on there, a tiny little pencil line, okay? I'm then going to raise up my T-square. I'm then going to line it up with that pencil line and then use my pencil and a nice light construction line. I'm just going to run that all the way along the page. Okay, so I've got that going right the way along there. Okay, happy with that now. Now we come in and we bring in our set squares. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one you go for here. You can go for one or the other. It's not too important at this stage. Okay, but for just now, I'm just going to choose this one. All right, so we've got our set square here. So we're now going to use that to draw our vertical lines. So whenever we're using a drawing board, set squares allow us to draw vertical lines, T-squares allow us to draw horizontal lines. Okay, so I'm now going to draw in 5 millimeters from the end here. So I'm just going to get my ruler again. Along that line I've just made, I'm going to measure up 5 millimeters. Okay, or measure along 5 millimeters. I'm then going to take my T-square, I'm going to line it up, I'm going to take my set square, and I'm going to let it rest on there. So see how there, how if I slide that along, it's always going to rest on the T-square, okay, no matter where it is. And that's going to guarantee I've got a 90 degrees in here and I've got a vertical line at all times, as long as you don't move the paper, okay? So I'm going to line up that little pencil line there, and I'm just going to give myself a nice light line up the top, okay? So that's looking fine to start with. I'm now thinking about my sizes. So that's going to be the corner of my container for the elevation. So I'm thinking about my widths to begin with. So I'm going to go back to my concept sketch. I've got two containers here. Okay, so I'm going to pop in the size for that just now. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to measure along 48 millimeters. So I'm going to rest the ruler down, measure that along to there. There we go, that is 48 there, like a little mark. And we've got a second one too, so I'm going to pop in 48 there as well. Okay, so that's my two containers width of that there. I'm then going to take my set square again, and I'm just going to draw a nice vertical line up here. Okay, that's going to represent the edges of the containers there. So that's looking fine. I'm now going to refer to my height. So height's 52, so I'm going to take my ruler again. I'm going to place the ruler down, go to 52, little mark on there for that. Then I'm going to draw a horizontal line at that point. Okay, again, nice light construction line. I'm going to take it right across the page. The reason for that will become clear later when we have a look at our end elevation. Okay. So I'm now looking at my top container here. So the one that's going to go across top with a nice cantilever on the end here. So I'm looking at putting in my next height. So height again is 52 at a scale of 1 to 50. So in we go. I'm going to pop in that there at 52. And again, I'll take this up to there. Nice light line right across the page. From this point, I'm now thinking about the length of the container. So I'm going to take my ruler. Length at scale of 1 to 50 is 122 millimeters. I'm then going to rest on there. The zero sitting on that vertical line. There's 120, there's 122. Okay, that is my line there. All right. So now I can take my set square again, resting it on the T-square, and I'm going to draw my vertical line here. And this is interesting. This is where you start to put your concept designs into reality, start to see how things plan out differently. In my head, I had my cantilever coming out a lot further than this. But in reality, when I start to put the scales in, the sizes to it, it's not quite as far as I would first thought on my idea, okay, which is fine, but I'll work with that, and it's absolutely cool. So, now that we've got this, I can use the T-square to go in and start to outline my container house, okay? So, I'm doing all my horizontal lines first. I'm just running the pencil along a bit of a deeper weight. Then I'm placing the set square back on, and I'm going to start to get my vertical lines in place. Okay, I'm starting to put those heavier weights into there. Okay, that's fine. So I'm now thinking, right, I'm going to start to apply a bit more details onto this. So we had a window that came in from the sides here. At this point, we don't have to worry about sizes too much. We're now going to get a wee bit creative with this, okay? We're wanting to make sure things look good in proportion, so we can refer to a couple of sizes if we wish, but for our purposes of this at the moment, we don't need to be too fussy for the details, okay? So we're going to now pop in our window there. So I've done a couple of lines there. I'm now going to pop in vertical line to show the end of that into there. Make sure I've got that done with the T-square. And then I had a wee recess at the end here in the window, so I'm going to show that again. I'm going to pop in the vertical line there. And then start to outline that corner again. Okay. I also had a bit of detail going on with this at the ends. I'm going to add a bit of that in. I'm going to have the glass protruding. I'm going to have some wood panels around it. So I'm going to draw in the protruding glass at the moment. Thinking I might actually put a size to that, make life easier. I'm going to make that 10 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to draw a nice light line out just there, and I'm going to mark that down as 10 millimeters. Okay, so at that point there, I can go in and take my vertical line up. And start to go back in and go heavier again with the pencil over these areas. All right. I'm now thinking about our window at the bottom here again. Nice light lines going in, construction lines to start with. Once you've got your rough shape in there, you're going to now start to think about outlining it in. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. I can now go in heavier lines. I can take the line from that top window down into there. And I can start to outline these sections. Okay. And then we had a garage door here, so I'm going to pop in that as well. So a couple vertical lines sketched in, nice and light. Then we're going to go over it, a bit heavier, just to show where that's going to go. Okay, so that's a start there. We're now thinking about adding in the cladding here. Jumped away from that for a second, so I'm going to make that protrude out a wee bit more. I'm going to make it protrude out, let's go 5 millimeters top and bottom. So I'm going to take my ruler there on this line I've just drawn in. I'm going to add 5 millimeters top and bottom. From there, I'm going to sketch a nice line this way and a nice line this way. So now I can go in and start to add in these wooded cladded panels. So I think I had 3 of them on my design. Might just get that in there. Like that. So from there, I can now go in, I can outline them. Like that. It is worth saying, when we are going over construction lines, if you see the construction lines after, don't rub them out. That's part of your work and that's part of your progress to show you're developing it. And we're going to use the construction lines more in a wee second. So there's going to be a few more details to go in here, but that is my elevation done. So once you've done that, you're going to come in here and you're going to write in elevation. So labeling it in capitals as always, because that is our British standards. That's our British standards regulations we apply to. So I've now got some nice light construction lines going across to the right here. I'm going to use that to start to put in my end elevation. So end elevation, I'm going to be looking at it from this direction. So I'm going to be looking at this end. So I'm going to see this glass panel. I'm going to see this container going lengthways. I'm not going to see this one though. It's going to be hidden behind this one. Okay, so that's worth bearing in mind as we do that, just thinking about the orientation of things. Again, I'm going to keep referring to my sizes. These are the 3 sizes I need, nothing else, which is fine. And we're going to start to populate that now over here. So I'm going to measure across a wee chunk just so we can see what's happening. I'm going to give it a wee bit of distance. I'm going to start at 70 millimeters across. Okay, so I'm going to draw a nice light construction line here now, like that. Okay. Now we've got some of the construction lines intersecting, we've got an edge to our container. Okay, so I'm thinking about this section first. I'm going to draw in this section. So we're going to have our container here. We're looking at end on. So I'm going to draw that and I'm going to put in its width next. So how far across that goes is 48 millimeters. So ruler down, 48 millimeters onto there. We can then place a nice light line down there. We now want the length for the bottom because we're going to see this one full length on. So along this line here, I'm going to move along to 122. So there's 122 millimeters there. At that point, I can pop in this here. So now I've got my rough outline for the container. I can start to outline it in. Going over again with set square and T-square to show the outlines, heavier lines. Okay. So from here, I'm now going to start thinking about my details. So again, we've not seen this side yet because our concept designs only showed this angle. So it started to open up new possibilities. I'm now thinking, I've got a lovely area for a balcony at the side here. So I'm now going to add in a bit of detail to show that. So I'm going to pop in a little glass banister along here, railing along here, like that. Okay. I'm thinking about my glass window here. I'm going to take my sizes across from that by taking my T-square up to here. Nice light construction line across in there, keeping it all the same sizes. I'm then going to pop in how wide it is. Now I've got that in place, I can go in and I can start to add some deeper colour to it, or deeper outlines. And then we need to think about the cladding next. So that comes across to here. That's going to protrude out the way. So I'm taking light construction lines from there across. And I spoke about this protruding 5 millimeters. So I'm now going to take my ruler, draw a little line there at 5 millimeters, and I'm going to measure out 5 millimeters from this line down here. And that's then going to allow me to show the edges of this cladding. So I can now start to take that up, like that, and there. From there, we can start to go in and outline this in. Okay, so that's starting to take shape, which is quite nice. Thinking I'm going to be looking at this end on, so I am going to see a couple more bits of this. What I'm going to have to do is get the rubber here and rub out this section, because you will not see this because the wooden cladding is now covering it. Okay, so you won't see this solid outline anymore. So I'm just going to remove that gently with the rubber. Okay, and at this point we can then go in, outline a little bit of detail here and here, and then think about this side here. I'm thinking, right, this is going to be a large window across the bottom, so I'm going to just pop that along here now. Okay, so I'm going to pop in a nice long window there, like that. Okay, so that's now our end elevation. So I'm going to make sure I label my view. Like that. Okay, so I've now populated that and I've got a bit of a rough shape come together for my container house, which is looking good. So we're now thinking about our last view. Now this is the plan. This sits above the elevation. Okay, so I'm going to take some nice light construction lines vertically using my T-square and set square like this, and these are going to become really handy when we start to put the plan in place. Okay, so we've got that in there, pop this on the edge like so. Okay, at this point we're going to have a look at our 45 by 45 degree set square, and we're going to use this to create a bounce line. Okay, so I'm going to take one line now, nice and vertically from the edge here. I'm going to use my other set square just for a second. I'm going to take that right to the top of the page. Okay, so from the end elevation right to the top. I'm now going to take my 45 by 45 degree set square, and I'm just going to lay it on here. So if I can make sure the set square is not going to go off the top of the page here, the bounce line is going to work. So I'm going to have this bounce line going down here. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure across 10 millimeters from the edge of this drawing, and that's going to ensure that I've got a 10 millimeter gap along the bottom between this elevation and the plan. Okay, which is fine. So I'm just going to take a nice wee vertical line off of that, just so we can see where the lines intersect. Okay, so at this point here where these lines intersect, we can now take our 45 by 45 degree set square, going to line it up onto there. We're going to now create this nice light construction line up here. Okay, so that is called our bounce line. Okay, and we're going to use that to take sizes from the end elevation and apply them onto the elevation without having to measure things back in. Okay, so it's a really useful little thing to do. So now we've got that in place, I can now start thinking about taking my lines up from the end elevation to the bounce line. So I've already got that one in place. I'll take up the one for the wee banister there. I'm going to take up the one for the wooden cladding there. Let's take up the glass section that pops out. That's looking good. Okay, that's what we'll need for just now. We'll get the rest in a wee minute. So now I'm going to take up my T-square. I'm going to line up with that bounce line. And at every point where this vertical line intersects with the bounce line at 45 degrees, I'm then going to take those lines horizontally to the left. Okay, so I'm taking them all across in this direction. Okay, I'm just going to have to move my clip there slightly because it's just in the way. Making sure I've got that in place. Okay. Okay, so now we've started to get a kind of patchwork of drawings in here, our construction lines. It's going to help us to put in our outlines. Okay, so we're now thinking about this container from above, the container house from above. So we are looking in this direction. Imagine we're a bird flying over the house, we're looking down, we're looking on top of this roof space. So we're going to see the top section of this. We're going to see this part here. We're then also going to see this outdoor area here. Okay, so we're going to see a couple bits. So we're first of all going to see our full length of this container. So we can start to outline that in. So that line from up here is to come from there. So I'm going to take that line from the container edge, run it along here, like so. Okay, so that line is going to become a solid outline up to that external cladding line. From there, I can start to populate outlines around this part. This is the little wooden cladding sections that's popping out at the edge. And then pop our lines across this way, like that. I've went and done them back to front there. I've done the wrong ones, just rub them out. So what we're after is outlining these ones here. And then this is our glass section that protrudes there, and we'll just get rid of that outline there that I've put in incorrectly. Okay, so that's looking fine. We've got a wee line to take from the elevation there to then finish off this part. Okay, so that's looking good. We can now take our glass panel up. So looking at this line, if I take this line here, projects up to the bounce line, across it goes. So I'm going to stop my solid line there. I'm then going to bring it in, like so. And again, I'm going to repeat the process of that cladding on the other side. So we're going to see this go right across here now, because that's the way the design's going to look. I'm going to have that going right across the top. So if you're a bird flying from above, you could see this lovely detail. And then we're going to pop in these horizontal lines next. Again, always using the set square for this. Like so. Okay, so that's taking shape. We can pop that line across there. And we'll have a solid line in there as well. All right. So we can start to pop in the edge of our container now, the back end now. So I can pop in my line there, and then that protrudes up. Okay, so now we're looking at the back of this container. It goes all the way up now. So these lines follow right the way through. So I'm going to draw a nice straight line here now, right up. Okay, and I'm stopping at this line because I know that's the end of my container. If I run along the line here, down the bounce line, that reflects on the end elevation. So that's good. I'm now going to run a line this direction, and I'm going to stop at this line, because if I run down the board, that shows me that's the end of the container house on this elevation. From there, I can then take pencil line across there, like so. So that's starting to look quite good. All right. At this stage, you may want to pop in the little balcony. So I've already taken a nice line up there for that. So I'm going to run that across here. And I'm going to start to show there's a nice glass balcony along this part here. I'm just going to line that in like so. Again, you're seeing it from above, so all you would see is a very thin piece of glass from above. So that is the plan complete. So I'm now going to just take a pencil again and ensure I label this correctly in capitals as plan. So we've now taken our 2D concept sketch. We've taken this as our elevation. We've then placed that into there relating to the sizes at 1 to 50, at a scale of 1 to 50. We've then managed to project across to create an end elevation. We've then used a bounce line to take our sizes up and pull them across there to then create our plan. Okay, so that's how we go about putting together our orthographic sketches using our third angle projection.